to think about this research before it's irreversible. But in China, they're not going to do it because they like the idea of designer babies, wipe out all the disease. But the problem with this is the Chinese their research and experiments haven't done too well. They only get it, they get their targeted codes about 40% of the time, and then when they add this gene in or take it out, they only get 20% of the time, but they're proceeding with it. They've done it on monkeys, they've done it on animals, and they're proceeding and actually have said that they have done this for humans, starting in January, I think it was. But anyway, the livestock they did was monkeys, and they regulated metabolism, immune cell development, stem cells, and thus being said, the human embryo tests are hit and misses. So they have actually done human embryos, which included injecting 86 embryos. They waited 48 hours to see if they had corrected missing DNA and things like that, and just 28 of them were successfully spliced. But again, we are wonderfully made. God tells us so, and it just made me sick to think that we're going to say, okay, and that's what they want. They want to say, oh, my baby isn't going to be perfect. Well, let's go ahead and change it. Let's go ahead and manipulate the DNA because we want a baby that's perfect, and this is what we want. And so this growing this edited embryo into a full-fledged adult wouldn't just remove the health problem, according to them, but it would create an augmented human. It would leave lasting changes that are passed on to further babies. And that kind of human power, is sick. It's not right. And yet that's what people are just, clamoring for is, I don't want a boy, I want a girl. So therefore, let's manipulate that embryo and we're going to change it. We're going to make it what we want, not what God has given us. And luckily, in the Chinese study, the researchers used embryos that weren't viable and would never grow to term. But how close does that make them? They know it's possible to do this. And this new study in this Chinese lab, it just boggles the mind, and what they're saying. But then for adults, we could manipulate so there wouldn't be tumors, there wouldn't be this, there wouldn't be that. Things would change. But when you start changing God's design to your design, when have you ever known that to come out right? When have you ever improved upon God's design? Trust me, you haven't, you won't, and it's not going to happen the way they think it is. That is my what's hot and what's not.
And that makes you hot, doesn't it?
Oh, yes.
It makes me hot, too. I'm telling you what. Okay, Teresa, you're ready.
Okay. Yeah, I am. I just have two quick things. One, I just because it made me smile. In Fort Worth, Texas, this past Monday, attempted robbery was thwarted when a 74-year-old grandma, Jewel Turner, was in her minivan and approached by a man who at first was just asking directions, and then he pulled a knife and held it to her throat, demanding the content of her money, telling her that he didn't want to hurt her. He wanted her money, but he would hurt her if he had to. And did I forget to mention she was a 74-year-old pistol-packing grandma, and she told him to back off or she'd blow his head off. And that just made me smile.
Go, Granny!
She had $1.62 in her purse, and to think that she could have been murdered for $1.62. But I thought, good for her. Now, this other topic is one that it's going to make you say, what? This past, also on Monday, April 20th, history was made when a Manhattan Supreme Court Justice, Barbara Jaffe, granted a writ of habeas corpus to Leo and Hercules, two chimpanzees. Arguably, she granted them legal person status to defend their right in court against unlawful imprisonment. They currently live at Stony Brook University on Long Island, and they do medical experimentation there. Well, this attorney, Stephen Wise, is for a non-human rights project. He says that they are intelligent, emotionally complex, and self-aware enough that they deserve basic human rights, such as the right against detainment and cruel treatment. He's hoping to move the chimps to a sanctuary in Fort Pierce, Florida, where apparently they have like 250 chimps that live there on a string of islands. And there's a hearing set for May 6th. And it just made me say, what? What? Are they wasting their time, our money? When there's so many other problems in the world, they're worried about chimpanzees and their right to not be detained.
Wow.
Isn't it something?
Yeah, it's more than something. It's incredible.
This lawyer has apparently done it like 4 or 5 times. This is the closest he has came to winning a case. It's the first time that a judge has actually granted a writ.
Wow.
And
what can you say? Okay, Mona.
Well, I was going to present the same thing, but she has changed it, Teresa. She has removed the words habeas corpus from it, and that their personhood is not up for debate right now. But that organization that you're talking about, they've been making no secret that they have a long-term plan to seek out basic human rights for intelligent animals, such as dolphins, whales, elephants, and great apes. And let me tell you something. Right now, I support them because I think that a great ape would make a better president than what we got. Sorry. I think them rights. No, this group is saying that under the Constitution, they have rights. Well, that's what I thought was funny.
Under the Constitution.
The hearing's been changed to May the 27th, too, by the way.
Seriously? They said under the Constitution,
Yeah,
apes have rights?
Yeah, that they have the same rights as for people under the Constitution. That's what they're doing.
Eek!
I know. But now they've taken that part out of it. It's just ridiculous. Just more of this ridiculous, crazy people that we're letting run the country, or run in the world, really. In New York, there's 140 pages of a new training manual that has been put out, along with those little pictures that you take. Anyway, they are going to change and make all the new recruits go through this 140-page thingamajiggy. And the several extreme rules in it is they cannot tell or tolerate ethnic, racial, or sexist jokes. They have to avoid expressing stereotypical assumptions. They do not imitate the speech pattern of others. This will appear disingenuous, artificial, and possibly racist. They cannot use terms or words that devalue groups of people. They cannot engage in racial profiling, adding it diverts us from catching real criminals. And when dealing with people who use English as a second language, they need to speak slowly and clearly and not use jargon, slang, idioms, or reduced forms such as gonna, gotta, wanna, coulda. That's happening in New York City thanks to our new mayor. The other thing is, I thought this was a good story, that after 4 decades of being free, a criminal that has managed to escape authority. He escaped one time before and they caught him from jail. Then he escaped the second time and they couldn't find him, and he remained free for 4 decades. This is in North Carolina. He turned himself in because he had a stroke and he wanted free medical care. So now he's in prison getting free medical care at the expense of us. The other thing is lip puckering. Have y'all heard about lip puckering? I do not know what it is with these Jenner Kardashian people. But Kylie Jenner has these puffy lips now, and all the girls are trying to post pictures on Facebook of their lips being puckered. And what they do is they suck on a shot glass or a plastic cup for a few minutes, which causes all the blood to run to their mouths, and their lips become big, huge puckered things. Well, what's happening is it's very serious that these girls are messing up and they're causing potential permanent disfigurement. It's painful, swelling, and their faces are bruising. They're getting soft tissue swelling and scarring. And these girls are ugly. And they're pasting this stuff on and it's catching on. This is dangerous. These girls need to have their behinds whipped. There's also, in drought, California's in a drought. So what do? California court, of course this is District 9 court out there in California, which is the one who makes all the interesting decisions. They have ruled in favor of the smelt fish. They're able to get water. Well, their water cannot be diverted to save human life or crops. They have to keep the water where the smelt fish can get the water. And it's also going to play into the needs of the wild salmon and the steelhead trout out there in the state. They're going to get water. We have environmentalists out of control in this country. The ACLU, they are fighting. Now they have filed a suit against the Catholic Church, Catholic groups, because they want them to provide abortions to illegal immigrants. Now this is an interesting thing because it was the Catholic United States Conference of Catholic Bishops that went down to Central America and brought all those kids up here, and they're getting all this money from the government. I don't know if y'all knew that. And now all of a sudden they're going to have to pay back the devil for dancing with the devil, because now they're making it to where the ACLU probably got a good case against the Catholic Church to making them to provide abortions to immigrants. And my last thing is the raisin law. I don't know if you knew about the raisin law. I didn't know about the raisin law. It came up this week on Fox that the raisin law is where if you raise raisins, the government can take 47% of your crop each year. 47%. And that this poor man that was raising raisins, he decided that he wasn't going to pay them anymore. So he started selling his on the open market, not turning it over to the government because he thought it was wrong. And they fined him $650,000 in fines. And now that has built up to over $1 million that he owes due to interest on unpaid fees. They also, the USDA, on top of the money he owes, they also want him to provide 1.2 million pounds of free raisins. Give them the raisins they didn't get. This is a law that was passed in 1937 and has never been changed, but it did go to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said that they needed to look at that again and send it back to have that looked at and changed. That poor man had to give up most of his land that he had built because he couldn't afford to pay the government the raisin tax. And that's my gripes.
I'm absolutely speechless. What in the world would the U.S. want with raisins?
I don't know. They don't know how to raise a child. I want to ask Mary something. The Chinese are doing all this stuff about they want to have these perfect beings. I want to know, what is the definition in China of perfection?
Generally a boy child.
Yeah, but doing what? Looking like what? Imagining what? You know what am I saying?
I understand what you're saying. It's absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely.
Golly. Our world is coming to a screeching halt, y'all.
Remember that movie, It's a Mad, Mad World? Well, honey, it's a mad, mad world.
Yeah, that wasn't near mad enough back then, though. Well,
Mona, wasn't that for the fish? Wasn't it only 6 fish that they have to divert all that water for?
Right.
Oh, I think that's all that was really left. 6 fish, yeah, and that they have to do that. That's, I mean, this is what's absurd. It's just like that kangaroo rat out there, that they cleared all that land and they wouldn't let people, clear the land because the kangaroo rat had to live in the brush. And so what do? They have all these wildfires now.
Put them in an aquarium. Good grief.
Well, I think they should send them to China like they had on that Big Bang show. They should send them over there, and they should make them illuminated and send them back so we can use them as night lights.
There you go. Thinking all the time. Well, the Enviros have shut down ranchers here where I live because of